Hello and welcome to Buy Africa, the show where we focus on investment opportunities around the continent. I'm Tshepo Modiba, and thanks for joining me. Tonight I'm joined by Langa Madonko, aka Mr. Africa, investment principal at Africa Strategic Impact Fund, for a closer look at markets in Tanzania. Langa, Tanzania, clearly one of my favorite countries on the continent. Your thoughts about the country as a whole?
No, Tanzania, beautiful country, beautiful people, love the scenery, good local beer, which is, I think, is something you know more about having recently been in Tanzania.
I can say I indulged in the local brewer. It goes down very well.
And the mountain?
The mountain was cold, but one of the... I'd recommend anyone who's got a week to spare to spend it climbing Kilimanjaro. One of the most amazing things you'll experience.
Another thing off your bucket list.
You know, and it's an extensive bucket list. I'm glad I could tick one off. Anyways, moving on swiftly to markets in particular. Your sense of the economy as a whole, the big drivers?
I think Tanzania is a country that I particularly like. Small exchange, but adequate for where the country is right now. Something that I see as growing as more companies start to take advantage of the opportunities in the United East Africa economy. Basically, I think one of the drivers there is tourism plays a big role. Of course, they've got a very good services sector as well, though I think it's one of the areas that's not fully exploited. And of course, now they're going into the whole oil and gas business, which is a story that's running across Africa. So,
a fairly diversified economy. Fairly
diversified. Greater scope for growth. I think there's immense potential in the agricultural space. Of course, they are already there in terms of tea and coffee and so forth, but there's a whole lot more that can be done in that space. Phenomenal
coffee, I must just
add that.
You know. Okay, stock market in particular, you want to talk about the sin stocks?
Yeah, I think being a tourist destination, I think one of the things that everybody tries out when they go there is the local beer.
Right.
You know, visit the local pubs, and then of course once in a while maybe has a ciggy and a cup of coffee.
So we might as well jump into that.
We might as well stick to what they know best.
Okay, let's start with the beer. Tanzanian breweries. Your sense of the company?
Old company, you know, has gone through a lot of transition. Now, major shareholder, it would be, of course, our own SAP Miller, with about 54%, and then you've got a couple of other asset managers and different businesses, about 4 or 5% each in there, bringing it to about 100. I think one of the most liquid stocks in terms of the Tanzanian market, and it's a good performer because it's hard to find a market where beer doesn't perform. It's very diversified. They now export some of their brands into the rest of the East Africa region, which is, I think, is good for them, and they've benefited immensely because some of the brands are already known in that part, and they are the house, if I can call it that, for SAP Miller into the East Africa region.
Right, so I guess a platform, given the growth, not just in Tanzania, but outside of Tanzania, platform for volume growth.
A very good platform for volume growth. One of the things that highlights that is if you go back to the story of how SAP Miller got in there, there was a point where TBL was owned by the government, and then, of course, mismanagement. Then SAP Miller went in, and within 24 months had tripled the output, tripled the revenue. Beautiful distribution network, especially one of the companies that I think is going to benefit immensely from the regional integration of the transport infrastructure that's currently underway in the particular region.
So it's fair to say this is a well-run business.
This is a well-run business. As you know, SAP Miller prides itself on efficiency of production and efficiency of distribution, and TBL is one of the key businesses in their portfolio.
In terms of margins, your view on what margins are they able to, given the increase in competition in the market as a whole, are they able to sustain those margins?
I think they can sustain the margins, particularly if you take, for instance, that they came from a position where at one point they had 98% of the market. Right now, I think they sit at around 74%. So because of the proud tradition, particularly relating to certain of the brands, they can maintain the margin because some of their brands have evolved and become more of premium beers, purely because of the heritage of the beer and the perception around it within the particular economy.
If we touch on the brands a little bit, I'm just disappointed you didn't bring a couple bottles with you for the show.
No, that's for after the show.
That's off, okay. Yeah, that's good to know. In terms of the brand power, is there scope for not just SAB Miller's brands, but the traditional Tanzania breweries brands to grow outside of Tanzania?
I think East Africa gives them a very good platform for that. I think some of their brands are already available in the market in terms of countries like Uganda, parts of Kenya. They're also trying to make inroads into Sudan, and then of course the distribution agreements with some other countries like Burundi and Rwanda with some of the breweries that are there. I think there's immense scope. I think actually one of the things that Africa actually needs to take a look at, drawing from that point, is a situation where more brands are distributed continent-wide. Right. I think from your own experience, you'll agree that it's a beer that might make sense here in South Africa as well. Yeah, so I think there's immense scope.
So I guess I'm hearing lots of good things here. So this is, I'm assuming, one that you like quite a bit.
It's one that I like quite a bit. I think beverage business makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Yeah. If we turn our focus to the other big brewery, East Africa Breweries, your view on this company?
East Africa Breweries, cross-listed business, has a listing in Kenya, has a listing in Uganda, has now a listing in Tanzania. Doing well in the East Africa region. Predominantly owned by Diego, an international business as well. Fast-growing brand as well. Recently, not so recently, but about 2 years back, they've now gone into South Sudan. So definitely not a business that's scared of frontier markets. And you know, Diego has got a presence in Ethiopia as well. And some of the brands out of East Africa Breweries are starting to be distributed into the Ethiopian market. So basically, they've got a broader reach in terms of their presence in East Africa. Through their equity stake in Serengeti, they've got a presence in Tanzania as well, and they're bringing in more brands there. So it's another business that's looking to aggressively grow in the East Africa region.
Right. The dominant market naturally is Kenya. Lots of competition there. Is that a concern going forward?
I think for them, competition is good. Because competition has been the main reason as to why they've started to look more into the rest of the East Africa region. They've also looked to see how they can have greater penetration in Rwanda and Burundi. And they've also, of course, established a distribution and manufacturing plant in South Sudan. So they are now literally at an advantage in terms of penetration into that frontier market. And I think also for them, it's also sensitized them to the need for them to play across the whole spectrum in terms of the brands from low cost all the way to premium, and see how they can diversify their clientele.
So again, good prospects in terms of volume growth.
Very good prospects. I think their aggression in terms of entering the frontier markets, they've also got agreements with a distribution company out of the DRC. So you can literally see that they are keen on going into markets where there's high population growth and where the numbers in the population themselves, even as we speak, are rather high.
Right. And again, in terms of prices and margins, your outlook here?
I think what will affect their margins, again, is how quickly they're able to move from distribution agreements in the different countries to manufacturing, because the more you can manufacture locally, the lower the costs. And one of the inhibitors, particularly in countries like South Sudan and the DRC, is the infrastructure for distribution. That puts pressure on the margins because it makes it more costly to distribute. So once Africa gets its story right and they can find cheaper and better ways to get the beer to the people in those new frontier markets, then they will definitely do well.
I like that. Get the beer to the people. That's very good. So I take it this is another one that you like.
I think this is another one that I like. I think all the fundamentals are right. Good management team as well in there, and has done well in the past. I think that trend should continue.
I hope it's not just because you like beer. Okay, moving across to cigarettes.
Yes.
Tanzania cigarettes. Your view on the company?
I don't smoke, so this endorsement
just getting
is
that out
purely on a business basis.
But you do drink?
Yes, it's for the purposes of testing the product that we are promoting in the market. Tanzanian cigarette company.
Yes.
Majority owned by the Japanese tobacco investment company. I think about 75%. A good business. Again, is one of those that has taken advantage of the East Africa story. And I think that's one of the things that maybe is fundamental to any business that's going to make it in any one of these countries, that the economy that you need to be looking at should not be exclusively the country where you're based. You should be looking to establish a good distribution network across the entire region. And the integration process there is faster than anywhere else on the rest of the continent. And they have managed to leverage that, and they've also, again, created brands that look at the dynamics across the entire region. So they've got premium brands all the way to more low-cost brands. But again, they've also started to experience pressure from something that we are familiar with here in South Africa, which is illegal brands being distributed in the market.
Right.
That has put pressure, but I think there are controls and there are measures in place that are helping to counteract that pressure.
Is the potential for legislation change going forward a potential concern here?
I think anybody who's in that space will be looking carefully at how all those factors play out in terms of legislation, in terms of restrictions as to where you can smoke, etc., content regulation in terms of the cigarettes. But amazingly, that's one of the sectors that continues to do well regardless of the economic downturn. Right. Paired with beer, cigarettes seem to do well, particularly in the entertainment space. And as our African markets, particularly speaking to East Africa situation, as we move more in terms of development of the entertainment industry, there's a greater appeal towards those particular products for some reason.
Okay. So throwing all of that into the mix, is this one that you're fairly bullish on as well?
I think with regards to this one, I'm a little bit more conservative. Yeah. I think the scope for distribution, again, as you have outlined, is a little bit more shaky than with the breweries, but it's a good business. They've got strategic partnerships with people who are farming the tobacco on site, and they've got business partners who participate in different aspects of the value chain. So they've done well in terms of how they've structured the business. Given a choice of the three, I'd go with the 2 beers and no cigarettes.
Okay, there you go. 2 beers, no cigarettes. Let's leave it there. Thanks to my guest, Langa Madonko, Investment Principal at Africa's Strategic Impact Fund. That's all from Buy Africa this week. Remember to follow me on Twitter. That's at Modiba_Tshepo. And Langa, yours is?
At Langa Donks.
At Langa Donks. And send us your thoughts about the show using the hashtag Buy Africa. From myself and the team, goodbye.